You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Today's Total Wellness Tuesday today, and before we get started, I want to let you know that during the month of February, we are going to be celebrating Heart Health Month. That means that each Tuesday, most likely a Tuesday, sometimes it will be on a Thursday, I'm going to be bringing you a topic very specific to improving your overall cardiovascular-based health. And here's the reason why it means so much to myself and our team over at Equilibrium Nutrition and all, of course, our integrative health practitioners. And the reason is this, is that the number one cause of mortality is still cardiovascular-based disease. So it can be with inflammation of the arteries, it could be blockages, it could be plaque buildup, it could be stenosis, it could be heart attacks, anything to do with your overall heart and health of those arteries is something that you should be worried about right now. Meaning not worried in living in terms of fear, but worried about in terms of improving your overall lifestyle, which is what we're going to be talking about today, to help really fend off the number one killer in our society. And I say that because if we can remove this one factor, it helps blood pressure, it helps blood sugar, and these things are the number 2 and 3 causal factors besides cancer, which this also helps with as well. So I want to go over the 4 proven factors to help you reverse heart disease and improve your overall heart-based health. So even if you have high cholesterol, even if you have, let's say, high triglycerides, you're dealing with elevated levels of LDL, you're dealing with elevated levels of homocysteine in the body, we can work on that. We really can. And we have proven research that shows people are able to reduce or come off of their statins by following a program like this. Of course, work with your PCP, work with your specialist, but that doesn't mean you can't work with a really good qualified integrative health practitioner. You can't follow the plans that we lay out here on the podcast, and that you can't begin to overall improve your health. Remember, just because you're using a medication, if you are, doesn't mean you can't actively work on your health and then maybe one day wean off of that medication or come off completely working with your, of course, medical specialist. So as you know, on the podcast, we can't diagnose, we can't treat, we can't cure disease. That's not the goal of the podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you and make you more aware of the things that cause dis-ease in the body in the first place, begin to rebalance those factors. And as we rebalance those factors, the disease sometimes and most likely disappears. Now, has the disease been cured? Has the disease been treated? I'll leave that up for other people to decide. All we did was we worked on the underlying root causal factors and this collection of symptoms that we give a name of a disease so that we can treat it with insurance and pharmaceuticals, well, that may no longer even exist. So that's what we want to work on today. Much of this research is taken from who I consider to be one of the 4 most authorities on heart-based health, and that's Dr. Dean Ornish. Dr. Dean Ornish, many published research articles, amazing in his own right as a medical doctor. And I believe one of the areas that Dr. Ornish excels is that he's been in practice 30 years, that he is a cardiologist and has seen many, many people, of course, in his own practice, but has also then done the research studies to back them up. Here's why I like that. So from being an analytical-based mind and wanting to really see the research, I appreciate the research. There's no doubt about it. And I'm going to focus a lot on that with you here today so that you can prove to yourself, you can prove to family members that this can be done, that we can actually ward off that number one killer in our society, which is heart disease. And it starts in our, believe it or not, childhood and teenage years. We know now that teenagers can actually have plaque in their arteries, as crazy as that sounds. So here's what we want to look at. Is we want to look at the research, but also we can look at this from private practice. I can share with you the evidence that I've seen in my clinical practice and the emails and success stories that we see every day. And also, you can take it from, again, one of the leading cardiologists and his work working with patients in his practice in, I believe, Sausalito, California as well. So here's the thing. A lot of what I'm going to share with you during Heart Health Month, there's no downside. There's literally no downside. And that's what I like to bet on. I'm not a betting man. I don't take risks, really crazy risks in my life. I don't take crazy risks with, of course, in my private practice, with my own health. It's just not something I bet on. Safety. I really do. I bet on plans that I know that are going to work, but also have very little downside. So I'm basically hedging my bet. Hey, if this doesn't work, it's also not going to hurt me. Like, that's what I want for people as well. That's why this is so important, is that there's a lot of diets out there right now. You know, we have the keto diet, we have the carnivore diet, we have a lot of different diets out there, but those are two of the most popular ones right now. You have to understand, just because it helps you transform the physical outer shell of your body does not mean that it is a good or safe long-term diet for your health. And as you're going to see here today, there are not long-term studies that super high-fat diets are going to be great for long-term health. We've actually not seen that. Even the people studied by Dr. Weston Price with higher fat diets, they didn't live past their mid-60s. So it's something to look at, even when we look at, again, certain healthy-based populations that may live an overall healthy life and end up dying at 67, 68 years old. So I don't want that for you, especially since just regular life expectancy is 76, 74 to 77 years old, okay? At least here in the United States. What I want for you is a nice, long, healthy life, but also not one full of complications, meaning like your quality of life is so low when you get to your 60s because you're on, a half a dozen medications, you have no energy anymore, you have no stamina, you've got muscle cramps, all these different things from medications that you may be taking. So let's go over those 4 factors today. I don't know necessarily that you're going to say, I've never heard of that before. But you have to understand the power behind these 4 things, and that if you're not implementing them in your life, you need to continue to really hear this through repetition until you begin to implement. Now, today, what I want to do is give you implementation ideas as well. So I'm going to get to those 4 in just a second. Here's the research, though. By following these 4 proven factors, there was a 91% reduction in the frequency of angina in 24 days. And I'll link up this. I'll just pop it in the show notes for the different studies. This one was published in JAMA by Dr. Ornish. If you're not familiar with JAMA, it's certainly one of the leading journals out there. It's the Journal of the American Medical Association. You don't get articles published in that or research published in that unless it is actually legitimate. So important to look at that. For those people that don't know what angina is, it's actually chest pain caused by lack of blood flow to the heart, typically because of inflammation in the arteries, plaque buildup, some type of blockage, okay? So that was 91% reduction in 24 days, just over 3 weeks, by following the 4 factors I'm going to share with you in a moment. There was also a 40% reduction in LDL cholesterol, which is your oxidized cholesterol, in the first year without cholesterol-lowering drugs. Again, this was published in JAMA, a separate study. The first one was 1983. This next one, 1998. So we've known about these things for quite some time. Next up, there was, again, if you can think about this, your LDL, you want it really below 100 on your cholesterol. People will give you all sorts of things that cholesterol is not necessarily that bad. It can be 250. Listen, for some people, it could be okay. It really can. I'm not going to deny that. I don't want you to take a chance with your health. That's the bottom line. I don't know if it's okay for you. Have you done arterial-based scans? What does the blockages look like? What are your cortisol levels? Listen, don't take a chance with your health. Don't take a chance with any of these maybe good diets, probably fat-based diets. Let's be careful. Let's follow what we've known has always worked and is proven by science and long-term research as well. 1983, we're going back, almost 40 years, right? So we know a little bit. All right, the next one is this. There was a 300% improvement in coronary blood measured by cardiac PET scans after 5 years. 300% improvement of blood flow through your arteries. Pretty good. This was published, or the leaders of the study were Gold and Ornish, published in JAMA in 1995. Next one is this, and I just have two more for you. 99% of patients stopped or reversed their heart disease as measured by cardiac PET scans after 5 years. In contrast, 45% of the control group got worse. 50% showed no change, and only 5% showed improvement. So let's check this out for the placebo, right? Placebo effect, control group, we have two different groups, okay? The placebo effect did account for 5 people actually improving over those 5 years in the control group, where not a lot was being done. However, 99% stopped. So they did not progress in their heart disease. No more arterial-based buildup. They did not progress. Or they reversed their current heart disease within 5 years. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. So whatever you're dealing with right now, is it reversible? Well, these studies seem to show that they are. And this was also part of the previous study where there was a 300% improvement in coronary blood measures, the same PET scans there, published in JAMA 1995. The last one I'll give you is this. There were 2.5 times as many cardiac events in the control group as in the lifestyle group after 5 years. That means there was a 2.5x increase in cardiac-based events, heart attacks, etc., during this 5-year base study. And this was published in 1998 by Dean Ornish and a team of researchers. So pretty impressive, right? 91% reduction in chest pain, 40% reduction in oxidized, the bad cholesterol. I mean, imagine going from, and I didn't finish that thought, but imagine going from an LDL of 130, which is not great, right? So imagine taking that 130 and then reducing it by 40%. Well, you're knocking down 52 points, and now you're under 100, and you're back in that safe zone for LDL-based cholesterol. Now, there are different measures. There's looking at lipoprotein little a and all sorts of other markers, but you still want your major foundational-based markers to be within check. And most people who are conservative in terms of working with their patients or wellness clients will tell you total cholesterol between 160 and 200, LDL 100 or below. Looking at HDL, we want that above a 59, and looking at triglycerides, somewhere between 50 and 100, ideally really between, let's say, 50 and 75. So when we look at that, and again, when you look at total cholesterol, the HDL, you want that to be a 3 or below in terms of the ratio. So you can look at your own blood work and you can size that up. And if something is not where it should be, that's why you need to run your blood work on at least an annual basis. And if you're over the age of 50 or there's any health issues, I recommend running it every 6 months. Again, this is your health, this is your body. Let's run that blood work. Let's run that lipid profile. And of course, while you're at it, might as well run the CBC and your other blood work in there as well. Definitely go back to check out my previous podcast on what to run for blood work, because I do recommend running that homocysteine. You can simply go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, and in the search box, type in homocysteine, HOMOCYSTEINE. You'll see the importance of that. Really, really important. And then what to do about it if it's ever elevated. Again, I give you, what to do. So remember, because I know not everybody can afford going to a functional medicine doctor. Not everybody can afford to run all the lab tests. Not everybody can afford meeting with their integrative health practitioner. But what I want to do is make sure you never lack for the information, right? So that you take control of your own health, your own body. It is your own health, right? It's not your doctor's health. It's not my health for you. It's your health. It's your body. I want you to take control of this. Okay, so what do we do now? What are these 4 factors? Here, let's start one at a time. Plant-based diet. A plant plant-based diet. We're going to be going over this in depth next week. So let's go over today's show notes because I'm going to leave all the studies there as well for the more of the skeptics, right? So let's go to stephencabral.com/1467 today for those links. stephencabral.com/1467. Again, feel free to continue to do this work, to continue to do this research. Everybody can find a research study to back up anything they want. Remember, but I have no dog in the race. I'm only betting on my long-term health and your long-term health. That's it. And if I found a better way, trust me, I would do that. I say it all the time. If someone shows me that the carnivore diet or any one of these diets is the best diet in the world, I will switch. I absolutely will. Because the importance and my allegiance is not to a diet. It's not to a plan at all. It is to your health, my family's health, those people in my private practice. That's where my allegiance lies, right? So if we get data on that, great, I'll switch. But we've got pretty good data. 5,000 years of Ayurveda, 3,000 years of traditional Chinese medicine. We've got Greek-based medicine. We've got all sorts of different, we've got the blue zones, and they're pointing to a plant-based diet. Now, is there no meat in that diet? Not necessarily. That's not what they talk about. They don't say necessarily you have to be vegan. But what they say is this. If we're looking at proteins, plant-based proteins, still great for us. Those would be beans, legumes, lentils. Again, Ayurveda taught us this as well. Why? Lots of fiber in there. Okay? What if you can't digest beans, legumes, things like that? We need to work on your gut. That's not what today's conversation is about, but we need to run that Candida metabolic and vitamins test, also known as the organic acids test. We need to run maybe a stool and parasite test, bacteria test, maybe run the food sensitivity test. Remember, we need to find out what's going on. If not, we're just guessing. Okay, plant-based diet, then what's the next best protein after plant-based proteins? And I would say as good as, right? Because there's so many benefits to eating fish as long as it's not loaded with mercury, heavy metals, or it's not farm-raised in a way that is bad for your health. Higher levels of omega-6s rather than omega-3s. So we're moving more towards, and again, I'm going to go very in-depth next week on what to eat, what not to eat in terms of heart-based health. But we have to be careful then of other forms of protein, more of the meats, red meats, etc., that I'll chat more about next week. But remember, if the predominance of your diet is plant-based, that means fruit and vegetables. That's what that means. Not loaded up on grains, not loaded up on proteins. You're already going to be moving towards a more anti-inflammatory diet and a healthier diet overall. Nuts and seeds work for a lot of people as well. There's protein in those too. Go back to how much protein you need per day. I've done many podcasts on all of these things. If you're ever trying to find out an answer to that question, simply go to cabralsupportgroup.com. It's our free Facebook group. Click to join. It's free. Positive people, always welcome and invited. Feel free to ask your question there. Hey, what's the podcast on this? I can't find it at stephencabral.com/podcast. Not a problem. We will link it up for you. All right? So number one, plant-based diet. I can't recommend it enough. Why? There's no downside. As long as you're getting enough protein, as long as you're using something like the daily nutritional support shake every day or a good daily activated multi, you're going to get the nutrients that you need. No doubt about it. Follow my plant-based eating plan that I've given you. Do the functional medicine detox, the Dr. Ball detox, the equilibrium nutrition detox, same thing, right? So do that, learn the eating style, and begin to incorporate that on a daily basis into your life. It will teach you how to live in more of a plant-based way. 7 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, mainly vegetables. 2 to 3 in the morning for breakfast, okay? You can blend those in a smoothie. 3 at lunch. 3 at dinner, you're already there. You're there. Cook them. Make them easier to digest. That's okay. Remember, you can do this. Number 2 is this, stress management. So remember, I have the whole de-stress protocol, right? I think that's so encompassing. But we're narrowing it down to 4. 4 based on the research. This is, by the way, so if you want the results we just talked about, 91% reduction in chest pain, 40% reduction in LDL, 300% improvement in blood flow through the heart, 99% stoppage or reversal of heart disease, 2.5 times less cardiac-based events, right? If you want that, this is the plan that they used. So follow this plan, right? Follow the plan. Share it with your parents. Share it with your spouse. Share it with friends, coworkers. This is the plan they used to get these results. There is no magic. There is no silver bullet. That's why I do these podcasts. There is no secret supplement. There's no secret pill. There's no secret any of that, right? It is part of an overall healthy lifestyle. Yes, you can use sauna. Yes, you can use all these different things, and they work. But don't forget these 4, okay? Stress management. What do we need to do? Well, simply we need to stress less. Of course, that's easy to say. But you can go back to yesterday's podcast, right? So that was episode 1466. 7 ways to reduce anxiety and how to create more positivity in your life. We need to reduce stress. You need to, again, go back to yesterday's podcast. You need to figure out what the triggers are in your life. How do you respond to that? How do you work on your breathing technique to relax that sympathetic nervous system? How do you reduce cortisol, even if it's using things like full spectrum magnesium, adrenal soothe during the day and at night, deep sleep support to get into a better night's sleep? You can do those things while working on your stress reduction. Tai Chi, Qigong, Hatha Yoga, meditation. How do we reduce stress? Binaural beats, going for walks, using a flow tank, emotional freedom technique, going to speak with a counselor, therapist. You have to pick the one that works for you to reduce stress in your life. How do you do that? That's the question for you, right? Because I don't know what your stress is. I don't know what's triggering it. I don't know what it's causing, but there's going to be a way for you to begin to reduce that, and that will help tremendously. All right, number 3 is this: moderate exercise. Not crazy boot camps, not 1,000 squats per workout, not running at full speed for 45 minutes, not doing marathons or Ironman triathlons. Moderate exercise. 2-3 times a week of strength training, 2-3 times a week of cardio, aerobic and anaerobic. I've been doing a lot of talking about this over the last couple months on our Training Thursday shows. So again, you can go back to those shows. And it shows you very specifically, we need both strength training and cardio. Not just interval training. Interval training is amazing. And why do we focus more on interval training and metabolic resistance training? Why? Because it transforms your body better than anything else. But let's not forget of the oxygen-based exercise, which is what happens when we do some cardiovascular work. Biking, light rowing, jogging, whatever you enjoy, right? Let's work on that too. And walking. I'll go over a little bit more about that, but some great studies. 3.5, when we look at that, about 3.5 hours of total walking per week. Moderate exercise. Did tremendous things. And again, that might seem like a lot. I understand that. I get it. But really, what are we talking about? 30 minutes a day, right? It's an hour for every 2 days. So we're looking at about a half hour a day. We need to remember that we are human beings meant to be moving. We're formerly hunter-gatherers. We're not meant to sit at a desk or behind a car steering wheel all day long. We need to get up and move. Walking is a great start. Getting those 10,000 steps is a great start. All right. The 4th one is this: psychosocial support. This is sometimes what people need more than anything else. And that is to feel more love in their life. Positivity and the endorphins that they promote. So, and that's sometimes difficult because people aren't always in the best relationships, and work is hard, and raising their kids is hard, and their parents or siblings or family dynamic is hard. What we need to do is, how do you feel more of that love in your life? And it might be through meditation. It might be through a support group you're a part of. It might be working with a really good therapist. It might be an excellent friend that you have when you're with them that you feel that love. It could be, honestly, a pet that you have. So many people, they show longevity improve and increase with getting a dog. And that's because you have a companion, someone that's there, they love you unconditionally, all of that. But what I need to do is find the things that you find joy in, not just love, but joy in your life. Do you love to read? Do you love to dance? Do you love to sing? How can you carve out a half hour a day or a half hour every other day to get some of that in your life? Find those things that you find peace in, that you find joy in, happiness and love. When you find that, you decrease inflammation, you decrease cortisol, you improve blood sugar, and you start to get those positive endorphins. All of that helps with the arteries. All of that helps with total inflammation and cholesterol in the body. So those are the 4 factors. Earth-shattering? Probably not. But are you doing them? Are you actively working on those 4? Or does someone else need to hear this in your life? If you're a coach, if you're a doctor, if one of your loved ones needs to work on that plant-based diet, that stress management, that moderate exercise, meaning like if you are not moving your body 4 days a week, you're not doing what you need to be doing as a healthy human being for heart disease. But again, it flows into prostate health, breast cancer, blood pressure, and type 2 diabetes. All of it works together. So yes, we're focused on having a healthy heart and heart month, but it works on all the other factors. Plant-based works with prostate-based cancer, works with breast cancer, works with type 2 diabetes, and it works with blood pressure as well. We're focused on the heart, but you will find the same studies backing this up with plant-based diet, stress management, moderate exercise, and psychosocial support. So hopefully this has been helpful today. Feel free to leave your comments. I would love to hear them. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I appreciate you. I truly do. And of course, if this was helpful, please do feel free to share this information and show with anyone you believe it could serve. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.